Hello folks, Dave Mayo here from HackYourGut.com. And today we're going to talk about circadian rhythms and autophagy. Now, before we move into the study I'm going to discuss, I do want to point out something. A lot of people are under the mistaken impression that autophagy is just something that happens when we're in a prolonged fasting state. And while we do see an upregulation in autophagy when we're in a prolonged fasted state, autophagy is actually something that happens all the time. And there is a circadian rhythm in it. And so to kind of elucidate how this happens, they took mice and kind of looked at the circadian variation in autophagy in their liver. And what they found was that mice during the day saw their cytosol and nucleus targeted with autophagy, and their mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum were basically spared. Whereas at night it shifted, and now autophagy was targeting the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum, whereas the cytosol and the nucleus were spared. This is really cool. This makes sense. Certainly you don't want to disassemble a cell all at the same time, but when we kind of look a little deeper, we can see how some things can really just screw up the function, particularly of the liver, which is not a good thing because the liver is a master regulator of metabolism. So what they found was it was not the light-dark cycle or the master clock that was regulating autophagy. It was behaviors that are gated in a circadian manner, such as feeding, physical activity, stress, things of that nature. But what they found in addition was when they started exposing these mice to lipopolysaccharide or endotoxin, LPS, you've heard me refer to it as all those things, there was a complete loss of the circadian rhythm of autophagy and a chronic targeting of the mitochondria. So what you would get with that is you would basically be seeing a signature, a metabolic signature of mitochondrial dysfunction. You see a lot of you see very high levels of free radicals or reactive oxygen species, and you'd see high levels of lactate, which is not good because lactate can actually induce insulin resistance. Additionally, you would see accumulation of liver fat because guess what? Any fat you consume or even make is only going to be metabolized in the mitochondria. So if you can no longer use the mitochondria to metabolize things, you will begin to accumulate fat. And as I just mentioned, we do actually see this elevation in lactate and glycolytic enzymes because those would generally be targeted for destruction by the autophagosome, and it's not happening because attention is focused on the mitochondria. So what does that mean? It means two things. We absolutely want to optimize our circadian rhythms. Now, another thing, we don't want to have leaky gut because leaky gut increases the amount of lipopolysaccharide that our liver is exposed to. And third, we do not want to eat a high-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, also referred to as a standard American or Western diet, because that will increase the amount of lipopolysaccharide your liver is exposed to. And in addition, one of the kind of almost gold standard approaches to kind of optimizing your circadian rhythms, and there's been multiple studies in my showing this, is that calorie restriction basically kind of makes the liver just function better from a circadian manner. Problem is most people are not going to calorie restrict to the level that they need to. So the other options are to do focus on all of your circadian rhythms, physical activity, particularly time-restricted eating. They've shown studies with mice where despite being able to put on weight, even if you overfeed them but you restrict that feeding window, they don't get the metabolic derangement that you see with mitochondrial dysfunction. So these are things that you really need to nail down. Get your circadian rhythms on point. Don't overeat. Don't consume a high-fat diet. And if you do have intestinal permeability for whatever reason, you need to correct that. My personal opinion is a lot of this is behavior driven. There are tons of studies in humans showing how our behaviors can increase the amount of lipopolysaccharide we absorb into the blood, and thus the amount of lipopolysaccharide that is going to hit our liver and potentially cause mitochondrial dysfunction. So there you have it. That basically sums it up. If you have any questions, pop them down below. Again, most of this is coming from the reference down below, diurnal rhythms, spatially and temporally organized autophagy. So have any questions, feel free to ask. Take care.